I thought I'd make this video just to address, what's happening with the All Blacks at the moment, and after that game on Friday night when the Boks comprehensively beat the All Blacks, there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of people saying that the Boks were lucky. There was a lot of Boks supporters crowing about the victory, and rightly so, and a lot of the All Black players, supporters saying on comments underneath my videos and on my Twitter page that this was only a warm-up, it didn't really mean anything. So here's a couple of points I just want to make about that, where the All Blacks are right now from an outsider's point of view, from a South African point of view, and let me know what you think, if you agree or not, particularly if you're New Zealander. I'd like to know where you feel that it's all gone wrong, or if we're all wrong on this. It'd be very interesting to hear your thoughts. Okay, firstly, I'd like to state quite the obvious. I still think the All Blacks are a force. I still think they're one of the best teams in the world. I think they certainly have enough talent to win a World Cup. I think they have enough, the right players to tear any opposition, and especially when they play New Zealand, they're almost unstoppable. So I think they still are. I want to say, as a South African, we've got a lot of respect for New Zealand rugby. With that in mind, I'd never write them off as a team. I think that black jersey, they've built a lot, and they've had some setbacks over the last couple of years under the current management, but they've really got the talent over there, and they've got a talent factory. How much this defeat will affect them going into the World Cup, it is just a warm-up. It means absolutely nothing once the tournament starts. It's great for bragging rights, and that's about all it is as a South African. As South African, we see them. Great victory for the Springboks, and Bok fans should enjoy the moment, but you should enjoy the moment knowing that it means nothing when next week when the World Cup starts. Secondly, I think you can expect a strong backlash. I think, knowing the New Zealand public like I do, and having toured there a number of times, been at a World Cup there in 2011, and covering a number of Springbok All Black tests in my life, and being a lifelong fan of watching the two teams play, I know this won't go down well in New Zealand. I think there'll be a lot of introspection, a lot of talk about it, and a lot of sort of self-reflection about it, and a lot of questions asked of the current management team and Ian Foster and Sam Cane. And I think those are valid questions, but you shouldn't lose sight of the fact that this is a World Cup now. These are the guys who are going into the World Cup, like it or not. There will be a change of management after the World Cup, and there's going to be a bit of I expect a backlash. These are proud players, it's a proud nation, and I certainly don't see the All Blacks lying down and becoming, sort of almost like how England have become in the last while. I think there's still too much pride. There's way too much talent in that team, and I still think it's the case of the All Blacks are going to have a bit of a backlash. It'll be interesting to see if it comes against France. Of course, they're pretty much in a decent position in terms of their pool, that they can still get out of their pool even if they lose the opening game against France. Although I think we're going to see a much stronger team that's going to make that opening game an epic encounter as well. I think there are some questions about the coach and captain, and I think those questions have been around for a long time, but they have shown the ability to bounce back. Personally, I don't like taking on players. I do think that if it was a choice of mine, I would probably have Ardie Sevier as the captain. I think he's a player who leads by example. Sam Cane's a great captain, and he's proven to be a great statesman for the All Blacks, but I think if you talk to me about if you had to choose any player to take over there, it would probably be Ardie Sevier for me. I think he represents exactly the spirit of New Zealand and the All Blacks to me, and is an exceptional player. So there are questions about the coach and captain. Those questions are going to persist, and it's up to them to show that that's not who they are, and that this game was a once-off, and that it won't be repeated again. However, one of the big problems that New Zealand probably have at the moment is that they seem to struggle when the pressure gets put upon them. If you think back to Ireland and France against New Zealand. You think back to England in the second half of the November Test last year, when they rallied back to draw against them. You think about the Springboks when they've beaten them and when they put pressure on them. When you cut off the All Blacks space, when they don't get the favourable calls from the referees, and we're not going to turn this into a debate, but they do tend to get away with quite a bit at times. And when they tend not to have the space to execute, and they can't, sort of make those line breaks, then they tend to struggle. And that is certainly an issue. You might scoff at this if you're a New Zealander, but if you look at it over the course of the last 2 years, the games against Ireland, France, as I said, that second part against England, some of the games against the Springboks, not Auckland so much, but Mbombela, Nelspruit last year, and now this game at Twickenham has shown that if a team gets it right, is in your faces, cuts off your space, and doesn't allow the All Blacks to get their game going, they have a problem. And they don't seem to have a plan B at the moment. They've got enough talent to rip teams apart, and you never take it away from them. But on average, we always used to talk about the All Blacks scoring 30 odd points in the game. On Friday night, they scored 7. Now, fair enough, there was some leeway on the red card and going down with some of the cards, and the ref was quite harsh on them at times. But at the end of the day, it's not often that if the All Blacks didn't score right at the end of the game, they would have been scoreless. And I think that shows just how uncontrolled the Springboks were. That shows how the All Blacks struggled to get their game plan going. And if you look, a lot of the stats favour the All Blacks in that game. That's a scary thing. The most carries, things like that. The Boks missed 40 tackles. But they scrambled defence, and they were in the All Blacks' face, and they read the attack so well that it really, the All Blacks struggled to get anything going. It's not often you see that happen, but we've seen it happen more times in the last 2 years than we have in, I suppose, in the last decade. So I think that is a concern for them. And if teams are going to get that pressure game up against them, there's going to be a lot of problems. And the next point is a good one for the All Blacks, is that there are few teams in the world that can probably execute that pressure game on them. A lot of teams can do it for a period, but ultimately fall away, and especially in that period before and after half-time, those are the moments the All Blacks usually strike. So there are very few teams in this World Cup. The bad part about that whole argument is the opening game is against one of those teams that found a way to do it in the last couple of years, and their possible quarterfinal opponents are another team that found to do it as well. So they've got a lot of work to do there, and I think they won't be resting on their laurels. There'll be a lot of pressure from back home. But there are very few teams, and I think they won't have any problems the rest of their pool. They'll have a pretty easy pool to go through, other than the France game. And other than the Springboks and Ireland, I don't see too many teams troubling them in the World Cup. But they've got those two games, and those are the two games they're going to have to go hard at. Next point I'm going to have is just how much are injuries and issues going to affect them. You already have this fact that Brodie Retallick's out for the opening game. You've got Shannon Frizzell, who's hopefully going to be back for that game, but is a doubt. And now we have the disciplinary for Scott Barrett of his red card. If you lose all three of those games for the French match, I'd say probably it's going to favour France a lot more. If two of those three players are back, it evens it out a bit. But that is a big concern for New Zealand, is having their best 15 on the park. And are they going to get to have their best 15 on the park? They've got some exceptional talents. A guy like Mark Telea was probably the best player on the park for New Zealand on Friday. There was a number of other guys who tried. Ardie Savea tried his heart out. A huge fan of him and the way he plays. But I think just overall they were overpowered by the Boks, and that's going to be a worry for them. They're going to need some of their talisman back. And that's going to play a huge part in the World Cup, how they get that momentum. At the moment, they're going to be hurting, so there'll be some of that will fuel their game. But long term, you're going to need those big names back in your side, and the sooner they get them, the better, because that's going to make a huge difference depending on what the outcome of the disciplinary is. What happens to a guy like Brodie Retallick, how quickly he's back in the side, and Shannon Frizzell as well, as long as those injuries don't get worse, and worse other injuries as well. So I think those those are the big key questions for New Zealand going. They need everything sort of to come together if they're going to be a factor at this World Cup. And then lastly, don't be surprised if they do surprise, because knowing as I say, the hunger and the passion in New Zealand for their rugby, the self-reflection that's going to be going on now, and the angst is going to put a lot of pressure on that team as well. I wouldn't be surprised if the backlash does come, and I wouldn't be surprised if they surprise a lot of people. I've predicted a while back a Springbok All Black World Cup final. We'll see if I'm right. It's going to be an interesting one, but I think the All Blacks have some work to do before we can get to that point. That's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you think. If you agree with the points, if there's something I've missed, please put it down below in the comments. Really like to hear. And if you haven't subscribed, smash that subscribe button, and there'll be a lot more of these videos as we get closer to the World Cup and the World Cup goes on. It's going to be a very interesting tournament. So feel free to follow it on this channel. We'll try and give you as much news as I can and as much comment as I can, and try and make some things make sense. But even if you just want to listen to disagree with me, feel free. Good chatting to you. Thanks for watching. Cheers.